What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 25 of the podcast. I am delighted to announce that I have one of my most special guests I've ever had on here so far. This guy, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to fangirl a little bit over this guy. He's a podcaster, and he covers basically all my favorite stuff. And so I heard these guys about, 5 years ago or so, and instantly just loved your podcast. And it is JD from all these different podcasts. So JD, I would like you to introduce yourself, man, and plug away, dude. Plug your podcasts.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Greg, man. Yeah, I'm JD. I've been doing podcasts for a long time. Started off with the Nth Cast, and then I moved to Dragon Ballers and podcasts on all sorts of TV, all sorts of movies. You can find our stuff recap.fm, or Dragon Ballers is the main show that I do, coming back next week. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm a little out of my depth. All the stuff that I talk about normally, horror is not one of my favorites, but there's some movies that I really enjoy, so I'm excited to do this with you.
Yeah, and I believe this movie that we're about to do was your pick. Was that right?
It was. It's the last horror film that I saw in theater with my wife, because she doesn't like horror films either, but everybody said that this movie, you have to see it in theater. You have to experience it that way. So we went and we both sat through it and then left, and we're like, man, kind of glad we did that, but we don't ever have to do that again.
So once we get through some of the housework of this, I'm going to ask you basically how your movie experience was in the theaters, because I feel like everybody has either a similar or a very different experience when it came to this specific movie. And trust me, man, I've got a horror story when it comes down to my experience.
Well, I'm excited to hear that.
Maybe I just oversold it. I didn't mean to oversell it. All right, so the movie that we're going to do for this one, it's a very special one. It's A Quiet Place from 2018. Oh, man, this movie, when I saw this one, dude, I loved it. Just to let you know, if you don't know how this works, the first quarter of the podcast is spoiler-free. And then I'm going to get through all the spoiler-free stuff. And then right after that, we're going to get into spoilers after the commercial. And then we get really deep into it. So, again, like when I saw this movie in 2018, I went with my wife. I heard it was great. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a good score, which I'll get into in a second. And it was like a no-brainer. Dude, John Krasinski was in it. Love him. Love The Office. So it was like, let's go check this out. So Rotten Tomatoes gave this one a whopping 95%, which is great, because if you look at the last 10 movies or so that I've done, they haven't really gotten higher than, I don't know, maybe like a 75 or so. And this one's a high scorer, definitely. IMDb gave this one a 7.5 out of 10, which also is pretty high as well when I've been checking out all my other scores and whatnot. JD, there's something here that when I was looking up my information on this movie, there's something that I just can't really understand, and maybe you can clear this up for me. Maybe you might know a little bit more than me. So I looked up the budget for this one, 17 to 21 million. So it's not 17 million or 18, 19, 20 or 21 million. It's 17 to 21 million. I'm kind of wondering here, how do you not have a definite number?
That's interesting. I have no idea, honestly. I'm assuming it's not public knowledge what they spend on these films, so it's an assumption. Sometimes, like, they have a ballpark. So, because you look at some of these movies, like, they spent 100 million or 150 million. Like, there's no way they spent that much money on that. But I could see 17 million, and I could see 21 million. So I guess it's a range, but I have no idea why we don't know what it cost.
Yeah, this is the first one that I've ever reviewed that hasn't just given me a solid number. And so I found that a little weird. So this one had a 17 to $21 million budget. And in the box office, it made a $340.9 million profit pretty much. And that is extraordinary. And I'm just so happy for John Krasinski and his wife for pulling this movie off, and not just pulling it off and making a lot of money, but actually earning that money. Because I felt this movie was so well earned, and I feel like they should bring it back to the theaters for that experience. Like how they did with Avatar, because a lot of people didn't go see Avatar when it came out. That's why they brought it back to the theaters. So that way the people who heard from, other people of how good it was and stuff, they had an opportunity to go experience it for themselves when they didn't get to see it around the first time. All right, so this movie was written by Brian Woods and Scott Beck. They did the screenplay. It was directed by John Krasinski. And I looked up what John Krasinski had directed previous to this. He had done brief interviews with Hideous Men from 2009. Never seen that or heard of it.
No.
He directed 3 episodes of The Office, The Boat, Lotto, and Sabre from 2010 to 2012.
Okay.
The Haulers from 2016, and then A Quiet Place 2 from 2020, which is funny because that movie was supposed to come out the day that, where I live in Sacramento, the day that we went to lockdown.
Yeah, I saw that they pushed it back to like September. Originally, it was going to be March, then May, and now it's all the way back to September, which is just because they had like premieres, right? Didn't they have like world premieres of the movie? So there are some people who've seen it, but it never went into wide release. I believe.
And even if that's true, I haven't heard one thing from one person if it's good or not. No reviewers, no pre-screeners who've seen it weeks before. I've never heard anything about that. So I'm good. I'm glad it hasn't gotten spoiled, because if A Quiet Place 2 is anything like A Quiet Place 1 and has spoilers like that, I don't want to know. I don't want to be spoiled.
And it's got Cillian Murphy in it, who I really appreciate everything that he does. So I'm excited to see his character in this next movie. So I will definitely see A Quiet Place 2 in theater, but that may be the last horror film I ever see in theater.
It's funny because the Quiet Place 2 trailer reminded me a lot of kind of like The Walking Dead, like where we are in that show within the last few years or so, where it kind of seems like a post-apocalyptic, no, you can't trust anybody, nobody's good anymore type of thing. And, you know, if we're not still good, then what's the purpose of living? You know, and it's like kind of like Walking Dead.
And I think that's what's going to make the next one interesting. Like, sure, we had the whatever opponent they had in A Quiet Place 1. I'm trying to be spoiler free, but in A Quiet Place 2, now that they maybe have moved past that to see the other people in the world and what people are doing in the post-apocalyptic world is going to be kind of crazy. And I think that's what makes compelling movies and compelling television, which is why I like The Walking Dead, because like in The Walking Dead, the walkers became kind of background and you deal with the other people, so that the way that you can do storytelling with that, and I feel like the enemy can be even more terrifying because you can see a reflection of yourself and how you would act in a situation like that. I mean, I'm really excited to see what they do with the next one.
And it's funny that we just keep talking about the sequel that hasn't been released yet. And
Yeah.
I feel like the reason we're so ecstatic about the sequel coming out is because of how good this movie was. And so let's get into the plot of this one. So, in a post-apocalyptic world, a family is forced to live in silence while hiding from monsters with ultra-sensitive hearing. This movie stars John Krasinski as Lee Abbott, or Abbott, which maybe I watched this movie today. Did they ever once say anybody's name?
No.
So why name anybody?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they needed it for the script. Maybe that helps them write the movie, having like characters, you know, but I don't know. I don't remember hearing any names at all in the film today.
No, all they did was say like your mom needs your help, or go with your mom or your sister. They never once said anybody's name at all. So it's kind of interesting. But John Krasinski plays Lee Abbott as the dad. Emily Blunt plays Evelyn, the mom. Millicent, I'm wondering if she goes by the name Millie. I don't know, but Millicent Simmons as Reagan, who's the daughter, and then Noah Jupe as Marcus, the son. Did you recognize Noah Jupe from anything else? Because he looked real familiar to me, and maybe I'm getting him mixed up with kids from It or something.
I recognize him. He was in that Wonder.
That's what my wife said.
Yeah. Did you ever see Wonder?
No, I wonder how it was.
It's okay. It's okay. And then after that, he was in Ford versus Ferrari, which that movie is great if you haven't seen that. I'm kind of a gearhead, so I love Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh, dude. Now as it just hit me. What I recognize him from, it just hit me, is that movie. It just came out. It's a Shia LaBeouf movie, and it's like the movie about his life. Have you heard about
Honey
that?
Boy?
Honey Boy. He played young Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, I love Shia. I mean, I'm not even ashamed to say I think Shia LaBeouf is a tremendous actor, and I love his movies. So yeah, he is in that as well.
Do you like the movie Disturbia?
I do.
Maybe if you want to come back on sometime, we could talk that movie, because I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean, well, we got to come back for A Quiet Place too. I got to come back for that.
You're already there. You're taken down. All right, so here we are. Spoiler-free thoughts, I guess. So this is the part where I kind of wanted to ask you what your movie theater experience was, because I know for a lot of people they say it's the quietest movie they've ever been in their life. Like, what about you? How was your experience?
Yeah, it was very silent, which I appreciate. And we saw it probably 6 weeks after it came out. So the only people going to see it were people like me and my wife who were like, yeah, we need to go see this and see it in theater. So it was very quiet. We didn't order popcorn because of the chewing on the popcorn. We just got a drink. And my wife was terrified the whole time, and she tried her best not to scream and jump and be loud. But I mean, she was having like a heart attack the whole time, and she kept grabbing my hand and doing the jump and grabby thing. So I mean, it made the whole movie more enjoyable to see, like with a crowd of people all really trying to be quiet and really trying to focus, because it made it feel more real, because you're like, oh I gotta be quiet because I don't want anybody to see me. So it was crazy. I really enjoyed it. Like, it was one of the better theater experiences I've had because of just the way it felt, just being there, part of the crowd, part of the people who were all experiencing it for the first time.
All right, so I was kind of expecting your story to go that way, and
Yeah.
I can tell you, JD, that I'm so jealous, my man. I
Oh no.
I wish my experience was like that. So let me tell you a little bit about my experience seeing it. So I don't know, I think you live in what, Texas, right?
Yeah, I live in
Texas.
Houston.
Yeah, and I live in Sacramento. So I don't know if you guys have any sort of studio movie grill out there.
Totally.
Okay, so then you know what it is. All right, so I've always heard about it. It's a great date night to go get yourself a dinner and a movie, and everyone always said you need to go try it out. And so my wife and I were like, okay, Quiet Place. Like, I don't know anything about this movie. I just heard it's good. Let's go to this basically dinner and a movie place. And so we go there and we get this. My wife picked the seats, and she's usually good about picking the seats, but I don't think she understood really how to how to pick the seats in one of those types of movie theaters. And so I basically watched the movie at like a desk with a computer chair.
Yeah.
So there were seats all around me that were actual like movie theater seats with little desks that you can have in front of you. I literally sat at a table with a computer chair, kind of the way I am right now, to watch the whole movie. So that already was like, this isn't cool, man. Whatever. So that's fine. I can get into the movie, no big deal. But here's the part that really sucked. So it's not that you get from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. dinner time and then the movie. You get to order food and eat and drink the entire movie if that's what you please. And I didn't know anything. And so I'm sitting there, and it's basically a mini restaurant per movie theater. And so I'm in the most quiet movie I've ever seen in my life, and I hear busboys walking by, clinking cups and plates and silverware, and waiters walking by, and they're like, okay, what can I get you? Yes, okay, you want that? Okay, all right, I'll be right back. And then like, dude, it was so distracting, and it was like the worst experience ever, because like your story, I've heard everybody say that everybody was so quiet, no one ordered food, nobody who had food wanted to eat it because they didn't want to bring attention to themselves, and even like those annoying people that would talk during a scary movie didn't talk.
Right.
And I'm
Nobody brought a baby.
Well, if you brought a baby, you better leave for this one.
Oh, I would have been upset. I would have asked him to leave for sure.
I would have demanded it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my experience, man. And I can still say though that even though it was distracting and loud, I still was so sucked into this movie, and there wasn't one second that I felt like, let's hurry up. Let's get to the next scene. Every second of this movie was just great, and that's one thing that I can say is that this movie's pacing was fantastic. I didn't have one pacing issue with it. I can say watching it today, after seeing it about 4 or 5 times, watching it today, I felt a little bit more of a pacing issue, and that was only because I knew what was coming, and I kind of wanted to get to certain scenes. Yeah. Like hurry up through this scene to get to this scene that's coming. But when I was in the theater, I never had a problem with that. And this was one of the fastest run-throughs that I've ever seen. It just seemed like it started and then it ended quickly because it was so entertaining.
Yeah, and I was thinking that today when I rewatched it. I was like, man, this is way shorter than I remember. Like, it almost felt like it was only like an hour movie, and it's like an hour and a half, right?
Hour 21.
Yeah, and I felt like it was like a 45-minute episode of like a TV show, and I was like, man, this is moving, and I didn't remember that. I looked up and I was like, I'm halfway through this movie, and I felt like I just started it. It was crazy, but I really appreciated that, like, because every moment means something, and even in the slow moments, the tension that's built into the background, you're like, okay, this is still moving along, which I like.
Oh, absolutely. Completely agree. I also have something written down that I wanted to ask you. Do you like The Office? Are you a fan of that show?
Oh yeah, big fan, big fan. I
So
mean, you
you,
listen to the podcast. Me and Steven, we quote The Office all the time. Like we would go from Dragon Ball to The Office, like seamlessly. I would like to say, but
yeah, you guys are freaking awesome. I gotta say, um, I like The Office too, but it's funny because I started watching The Office after I've seen that because I was a late bloomer. I'm like a new Office fan. And
okay.
so, I mean, I've seen the whole series probably like a good 10 times now, because I watch it literally every night. It's my favorite show in the world now, but I hadn't really been familiar with it. So for me, John Krasinski wasn't really Jim on screen. He was more John Krasinski. I know he's in The Office, but he's more just John Krasinski.
Mm-hmm.
But for a lot of other people, I know that they were like, it was kind of hard watching Jim be somebody else because he's Jim. It's like watching Matt LeBlanc be somebody other than Joey Tribbiani on Friends. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like
Yeah.
You're Joey, you're Chandler. Like you're Michael Scott, dude. You're not Steve Carell. So, did you have that experience, or were you able to just get sucked into the character that he was portraying, or did you just see Jim sometimes?
Sometimes I just saw Jim, but he did that other movie, 27 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. Have you seen that movie?
Oh, actually, no, I haven't seen that, but I forgot that he was in that.
Yeah. So I'm big into like war movies and things like that. That was like one of my favorite genres. So I'd seen him in that, so I was able to then kind of see the progression from Jim to, okay, I'm going to be a real actor now. Not that being on The Office isn't being a real actor. So it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. But I mean, some moments like where he's doing like facial gestures and you could see it in his eyes, and like when it's almost like he's looking like at the camera, like Jim does. And you're like, okay, I could see a little bit of Jim in there. But yeah.
I know. I just waited the whole time for him to look over at his wife and do that side smile,
Yeah.
the Jim smile,
The
but
smirk.
the schmirk. But yeah, I thought he completely got into his character, and even though it's like, yeah, dude, you're Jim, it was still I was able to see the character he was playing, and so hats off to John Krasinski to pull that off.
Especially directing himself. Like, I feel like that would be difficult to play a character different than you've ever played before and direct yourself at the same time. Like, I don't know. I think that takes a different level of skill.
Well, I can also say like this isn't his first. This is not his very first thing he ever directed, but this is probably like the biggest thing he's ever directed. And I can say, man, like I don't know if you know this, but like I do. I'm starting to branch into filmmaking,
Oh, cool.
and yeah, I do short horror films. Two of them are on my channel if you ever want to check them out. But I can tell you, man, like when you're the one directing it and also filming it, it's weird. You know what I mean? Because like you're trying to create the thing that you would want to see when you're watching a movie. Like something I think would be really cool, and you try to capture that moment. And it's a lot harder than you think it is to really like make something good. And especially for it being his first really big movie, I feel like there's almost nothing bad I can say about this one, dude. And I kind of want to just segue that right into our ratings. So again, still in spoiler-free section. I want to know, JD, what's your rating from 1 to 10?
The rating system goes from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst movie you've ever seen, 5 being completely average, not good, not bad, and 10 being a nearly perfect movie.
I would give it a 9. Partially because of my experience of seeing it in the theater. It really, really enhanced the whole rating and the whole feel of the film for me. So, and I think you recreate that at home. Like I was watching it again today with headphones on and in my office, and I could still feel that. But I think the pacing, the story, the originality, I feel like it's a fairly original bad guy that they're fighting in this. Like I don't know what you call him, like the horror monster or whatever. I don't know what you call it, the technical term, but I felt like it was fairly original. I'm not as versed as some people. And then just the struggle that they have to be quiet, to do everyday tasks, mundane things, just built in this tension that I felt the whole movie. So I really enjoyed it. So I give it a 9.
Wow, that's a really high score.
Yeah.
It's funny because even though I think that's a little high, I'm gonna see your 9 and raise you by 1. I'm giving this one a perfect score, dude. 10 out
Wow.
of 10. And I remember when I saw it in the theater, when I came out of the theater, I was like, because my wife and I love movies, and so instantly you get out and you're like, what did you think? And I remember just like my mouth being open, like literally jaw dropped, and I was like, that movie was like perfect. Like there wasn't one thing I could say about that movie. Which, dude, there's an abundance of movies that I think are 10 out of 10s, but I can still find like a handful of stuff that I'm like, that's not that good, I guess, but it's still a really good movie and it's near perfect. This is one of those really rare occasions where the only thing that I can find wrong with it, which we can get into if I remember in the spoilers, but the only real things I can really think about it are so minuscule and small that it really doesn't at all matter to the movie. It doesn't hurt it at all to me. And if that's the only thing I can complain about, and that's really nothing, then how can I not give this a 10? You know what I mean? In my experience, was even worse than yours in the theaters.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's me not liking horror films that swayed me from giving it a 10. I don't know. I'm not going to try to justify my score, but like there's very few movies, me personally, that I'd give it 10 out of 10. Like honestly, I couldn't even think of one off the top of my head. So it would take a lot of thought for me. But yeah, I really, like you said, I enjoyed this movie, and I don't find anything wrong with it whatsoever. And rewatching it reminded me of how much I did enjoy it.
And you know what's funny too is this movie only came out 2 years ago, actually April. So yeah, just a little over 2 years ago. And dude, I remember this movie like the back of my hand. I love this movie, and I hadn't seen it in a while, and so I was curious to know kind of how I was going to react to the jump scares and the story and all that stuff. Rewatching it again, after I haven't seen it probably over a year, so it's been a while. And when I watched it, I was jumping. Like I forgot a lot of the jump scares. There were scenes in the movie where I'm not gonna lie, like I cried like 3 times again in this.
Yeah.
That's one thing I remember about in the theaters is bawling like a baby, dude. And like I'm not gonna lie, I can cry at movies if it makes me feel it. And this movie, there were moments where this movie made me welled up like a little girl, and I cried, and I was like, "Mommy, where's the tissues?" Because like I need one. It was it's just so good. And even watching it at home on my flat screen, and I didn't have headphones. I just had it like loud, my kids running around and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's still, dude, I was just so sucked into it. I don't even know what my kids did for the last hour and 20 minutes.
Nice.
I mean, thankfully they're still okay and kicking, but
Yeah.
for me, I was so sucked into the movie. It's just so suspenseful. The pacing is great. It's emotional, which I always love when I can feel something in a movie. And it's a great story. Like you said, it's nearly original. Like, I'm not going to lie, everybody knows this is some sort of alien invasion type of movie.
Right.
Without spoiling anything, I can't tell you anything more than that. But with all of these handfuls of, quote unquote alien movies, I don't really know if I can think of any that are like this. I mean, you have your War of the Worlds, but that's more like a war type of movie, like a war versus aliens. And this is more just a small, condensed, small, not budget, but small cast. And it's just really good, man. And then the acting is also fantastic as well. So yeah, would you, before we get into spoilers, what kind of movie lover would like a movie like this, do you think? Like what other movies do you think they might like that are kind of like this?
That's an interesting question. See, I think this is like, and one of the reasons I picked it is because it's not specifically just for horror fans. It's a movie that I think just film people would appreciate because of the pacing, the filming, the acting, the story, like all of those. If you're just a fan of film, I think that you would like this movie. And if you like suspense films or mystery films or anything like that, I feel like you would enjoy this because you know there's tension built the whole time, and you think you have an idea of what's going to happen, and you really don't. And before you see the monsters, you think you have an idea of what they are, but you really don't, and it just feels, it was like a mystery and like a reveal the whole time. I just think that people who like film would enjoy this movie, and it just feels fresh and new. So it felt like something that I hadn't seen before. So I think as a film fan, any film fan would enjoy this movie, honestly.
It's a really good point, JD. And I was thinking as you were saying that, I think there's something else I'm going to start adding to my podcast. See, I pretty much have a solid outline of how the shows go now. I'd say for the last 5 episodes or so, I've really started to just kind of hone in on how I want the show to go. But I'm adding a few little things here and there, just depending on how our conversations go. And you kind of just made me want to add something into this. So I think I'm going to start adding a scare rating as well, 1 through 10. And I think that's a big deal because if you see a movie like Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho from 1960, have you ever seen that one?
Oh, yeah.
That movie's not scary. Not in today's standards, but at all. It's really great. It's just not scary. But if you see a movie like this, which has a lot of suspense and at moments that will make you jump for sure, loud noises and stuff, well, then they're both horror movies, but the scare rating on those would definitely be way different. So, I mean, I'm going to kind of wing it here, but let's just say 1 is like, no, this movie is not scary at all. 5 being like, I guess I jumped once. And then 10 being like, this movie was like, made me jump and freak me out the whole time. So what would you give this one?
I'd say a 7 at least, maybe 7.5. I mean, like you said, we're winging it, but there were times where I definitely jumped, times where I was definitely frightened for the characters in the film. So like there was a suspense, and I mean those things are kind of terrifying. So like when you look at them, you're like, oh my gosh, if I saw that in real life, I would not be okay. So I think at least 7.5. What do you think?
That's pretty good. I would say about 7.5 too. I'll have to say 7.5 as far as scares go. Yes, I will say an 8 though, as far as just making you jump. And I'll tell you why. Let me explain that. Because there's specifically one transition, you might remember this, where it goes from really quiet, obviously, and then it goes to kind of like a waterfall / pond scene. And the transition is pure quiet to loud, rapid waters.
Yeah.
Do you remember that at all?
Oh, yeah.
And so that made me jump because it was just like a loud volume. And so that's not technically something that's scary, yet it did effectively make me jump. It was a jump scare without anything having to be scary. So, I kind of got to give it 2 little scores. 7.5 for actually being a scary movie, and then an 8 for it being like things that made me jump, I would say. I don't know. I'm going to start incorporating that, though. So thank you for inspiring me to do that, my man.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for the spoiler-free section of this. If you guys haven't seen this movie and you want to hear the spoilers, I suggest and highly suggest you don't listen to spoilers if you haven't seen this one. Rent it. Honestly, I would say buy it. I'm a fan of buying movies. So I would say buy this movie because you're going to want to watch it again, and you're going to want to show people who've never seen it too once you've seen it. It's just one of those types of movies like, wait, you've never seen A Quiet Place? Okay, that's what we're doing tonight. Get the popcorn. Actually, leave the popcorn because it'd be too crunchy, but we're going to watch this movie. All right? So I would say come back after you've seen this movie. All right? Thank you, everybody, for listening up to this point, and we will be back right after this ad. All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the spoilers section. So this is where we're going to get deep, so deep, knuckles deep into this movie. And we're going to start this one out by asking JD, who was your favorite and your least favorite character of this movie and why?
I think my favorite character is John Krasinski's character, Lee Abbott, which we never learn in the film, because I'm a dad and I identify with what he was having to deal with. And I cannot imagine the emotional stress of having children in that situation and a wife to take care of, and then getting your wife pregnant. What an idiot. You know what I'm saying? But I identify with that as a father and as a man, and wanting to take care of my wife and my kids. And just, I often think about, because maybe I messed up, what it would be like and how I would act in a situation like that, like as a father with little kids, like oh, and it just, it gives me a heart attack almost every time. So I appreciate that character and just what he did throughout the film, taking care of his family, trying to fix his daughter's hearing aid the whole time, building a safe room for his wife and their newborn baby. And I appreciate that. And when you said what's your least favorite character, that was a tough one for me because I think everybody did a great job. But if I had to pick one, it would be the son Noah, just because I found some of the things he did annoying. But I think that was the point, because he's a young kid in this situation, and him being afraid, and like at the waterfall scene, like, hey, they're gonna hear you. Dad, I can't. They're gonna hear you. And then screaming when his dad got attacked and things like that. Understandable, but kind of annoying and kind of bad for everybody else that he can't keep it together. You know what I'm saying? But you gotta expect that from a kid. So I don't know. That was a tough question for me. Though who was my least favorite, but him I found to be the most annoying. So I picked him.
Okay, good answers, man. My favorite was also John Krasinski's character, the dad, easily. And you pretty much took the words out of my mouth. I completely agree with what you were saying. He stepped up as a dad, as a husband. He did everything he needed to. He was the backbone of the house. I'm not going to take anything away from his wife either, in the movie, because she definitely held down the barn, you could say, with a baby in her belly. But he was the one also going out scavenging. Like, it seemed like he was going to the beach and getting the sand and everything and laying all the groundwork out, the hard work. So I felt like he was just a really good dad. Everything you said, pretty much ditto, But my least favorite is going to differ from yours, because the daughter, what was her name? Reagan. Well, that's her real name, but the character name was Reagan or Regan. She was easily my least favorite, and I'll tell you why. Because, okay, first of all, she got the baby killed.
Yeah.
Okay. And there is the moment when the dad and the son are like, do you blame her? And he's like, no, but come on. Like, there's got to be a party that's like, you effing gave him that spaceship after I told you not to, and you got your little brother killed.
Right.
So there's that. Also, I didn't like her angst, her like teenage angst with her dad and stuff, where she would just like take off and she would get pissed off. And like, there's the moment where he kneels down and he shows her, look, I've been working on this hearing aid thing for you. And she's like, nah, ain't gonna work. And he's like, we'll try it. And she's like, it's not gonna work. Why don't you get it? And it's like, I don't know what is going on with you guys, but why are you being like this? Like, how about thanks, Dad, for devoting your time to try and help me? I understand that she feels neglected and she feels like he blames her for the son's death, but still, like, she just had this like attitude the whole time. I felt like there was almost no redeeming qualities about her, except for the fact that you could tell that she, loved her brother, like her, the one who's alive still.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. It's just, her performance was fine. She acted great. I just didn't care for her character very much.
I gotcha. It's just the kids. Kids ruin everything, Like, let's see.
Even though I will admit, dude, I don't feel like they ruined this movie at all. Like, I feel like they were on par with like the Stranger Things cast, like as far as acting goes and likability and stuff. There are definitely movies where kids suck, but in this one, I didn't feel like they sucked. I just felt like the way that character was written was just somebody I wasn't a fan of. Until the end of the movie, when she like kicks that alien's butt. That was pretty cool too.
What I like about her is that she's actually deaf in real life. So
right.
Her being a deaf actress, I think really added to the film. And I think the reason that I like her character more is because when they did it from her point of view, all sound stopped. And I just think that was so cool. Like, everybody else you hear like background noise and stuff like that, but when it got to her, everything stopped. And I really liked that. So maybe that's why I see her in a better light, because I thought that was cool.
Oh, it was totally cool. And I thought that too. Like, she's actually deaf, and so I wonder just like what that experience must have been like for her. I don't know. I can never fit in her shoes, but still, like, I want to know what's in her head. I want to know like what it felt like to be doing a movie about not being able to communicate. And I wonder if she felt at all like the way people are going to feel watching this is how I feel all the time, about not being able to speak with anybody and hear anything ever. I don't know. It'd be nice to hear an interview. Yeah, so I thought she was a good character. I didn't really care so much for her, but uh, I wonder what it was like, to be in her shoes for once when it comes to this type of movie. But I also want to ask you, who do you feel like had the best and the worst performances? So as far as acting goes.
Okay. I think the best having to be quiet was Emily Blunt. Like giving birth to a baby and being quiet, stepping on that nail and not screaming. I screamed when she stepped on that nail. You know what I'm saying? Like that hurt me. So I think she did the best for that, like for being quiet and living in the world. And then even in her moments with her kids and with her husband, you could see like her empathy and her concern for her kids and like this world that y'all are growing up in. Like, oh my God. And then telling her husband, like, we have to protect them. That what are we if we can't protect our kids? Like, I thought that was excellent. The whole movie, I thought she was tremendous. And then I don't know, worst, probably the daughter, which is terrible to say, but I mean, some of her scenes, like you said, with the angsty, I felt like it was kind of a crutch for her to be angsty. And so I didn't know if that was written or if they're like, hey, this is what she can do, so we're going to be angsty. But it wasn't bad. I just, of a small cast, you have to pick one. There's like 5 people in the movie, so I'd put her at the bottom.
It is a little hard when I ask, favorite character, least favorite character, best performance. Like, you really only have a small little handful to grab out of. But I definitely would. I totally agree, dude. The wife, Emily Blunt. Oh my God, bro. Especially the scene where she's in labor and she starts to, her water broke and she's just like, when she's walking down the stairs and she's like, and she's breathing and you see, you're like, oh my God. And then, because we both have wives, we've had kids, so we've been there with the contractions and they're no joke. And so you can just imagine, dude, like, oh my God, what is she feeling right now? And she has to be quiet. But dude, when she's in the bathtub and she's laying there, oh my God, man, I cannot even put into words how good of an actress she is. And I've never once thought she wasn't a good actress at all, but rewatching this movie today, I was just like, Jesus, she is so good, man.
Yeah.
And honestly, I even felt John Krasinski was fantastic. I even thought the son, as much as he probably annoyed you, I even thought his acting was really good too. Like, his scared face was pretty spot on. And I also would say that my least favorite performance was the daughter as well. The angsty thing, like, I mean, I thought she acted it fine. It's just that I felt like there was a lot of moments where she probably should have had more of a worry or a panic look to her face. And she kind of seemed a little bit more not as worried, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and her not being able to hear and just see things, I feel like they could have done more with that, like with the performance, like her reaction in her faces and things like that. Like the moment where we see the monster right behind her and she turns around and sees it. I feel like the reaction was not what it should have been. Like oh my God, it didn't really happen because I would have lost it. Like, it's right there. It's right there. Like,
oh, totally, dude. I totally understand what you mean. Okay, so now that we've asked those questions, I think it's just discussion time to talk about just the movie. I have a few bullet points that I kind of wanted to bring up, and I feel like you cannot talk about this movie without having to talk about the opener, talking about the death of the youngest little boy. And to kind of set up the scene a little bit, you can see that the son, Marcus, the older son, he is sick or something in the beginning of the movie. And so they went to like this pharmacy to find some medication. And that's when you get introduced to the characters and you start to realize just how slow the mom is grabbing the pill bottle and getting the pills out. You know that they're trying to be pure quiet. And then you have this little boy who I would say maybe 3 years old.
3 or 4, not toddler. Definitely a toddler.
Definitely a toddler. Yeah, I would say maybe 4 because John Krasinski has to like explain to him, you have to be quiet and stuff. And it seems like the kid understands. So he must be 4 or so to understand to shut up a little bit. But he has a spaceship and there's batteries inside of it, and the whole family stops and they take that spaceship from him. They take the batteries out slowly and quietly, and they explain like, I'm sorry, you can't have this, but it's too loud. And that's when the daughter gives back the spaceship, and then the whole family is kind of walking across this bridge on their sand path trying to be quiet. And here is a gripe that I have with the movie, but again, they address it, so I can't really even say it's a gripe. And my biggest problem as us being dads, you never walk with your kid behind you.
No.
You know what I'm saying? You always have your kid in front of you, so that way you can keep an eye on them, because you don't know who's going to snatch them, or if you're crossing a street, if a car swipes them because they're behind you. I could never live with myself if I was the one in front of my child. I need to be protecting them. And that kid was dead set in the back with everybody, and the mom and dad were the farthest from him, so the safety was the farthest from him.
Yeah, the youngest one too. That one should be in the middle. Like, you have one parent in the front, one parent in the back, and kids in the middle. 100% agree.
You always need to keep an eye on that kid, and that is ultimately, I feel like, is why that kid has the demise that he had, is because they weren't keeping an eye on him. First of all, if they would have looked back once, which they didn't, they would have seen that their kid had that spaceship toy again. And then, the dad could have been like, immediately could have been like, yo, give me that. You're not supposed to have that.
Right. And he picked up the batteries, so maybe he has a toy, but when they see him putting batteries in, they'd be like, what are you doing? No, we've been through this. And how could you trust your kid to walk on that path with, like, just follow? Like, little kids wander, little kids get distracted, like, you'd have to keep him on task all the time. Like, yeah, I agree with you. That was a little like, okay, whose fault is this? This is the parents' fault. Should have been some parenting there.
And I would have more of a problem if they just left it like that, but they don't, because later on, when John Krasinski and his wife are after the baby's born, and they're talking, that scene that you mentioned, who are we if we can't protect our kids? Yeah. And she starts crying, and she goes, I didn't even have anything in my hand. I could have held him, and I didn't. And he's like, you can't talk like that. And she's like, but it's true. Like, we could have protected him, and we didn't. And so I'm glad that they addressed that, because that's what everybody else was thinking. Like, why weren't you carrying the youngest? Why wasn't he with you? But they bring it on, so I can't gripe about it, dude, because they acknowledge it. I hate when movies do stupid things and they never acknowledge that, this was kind of dumb on our end. Never. And they just expect the audience to be okay with it. And so the fact that they bring it up and let you know that we also know that we didn't do right by that kid makes me respect this movie, and the thought that goes into the writing so much more because of that. But basically what happens, like I said, like, the kid gets the spaceship, puts the batteries back in, and from off camera, you just hear the sound of the spaceship going, and you see great acting from Emily Blunt, John Krasinski. They both know exactly what happened, and John Krasinski just puts the kid down that he's holding, and he sprints, dude. And like, the first time I saw this in the theaters, I was like, whoa, like, what's about to happen? Yeah. And then you just see that kid get swooped up by an alien or whatever, the creature, and that kid's just dead. It's gone. And you're like, whoa, that is one of the boldest ways to open a movies I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, it sets the tone from the beginning. Like, it's 90 to 100 days after something, I guess, when the aliens land or whatever. And the world is already falling apart. So, okay, this is bad enough. But then to kill a kid in the family that quick, you're like, oh, I guess we're in for a ride here. Like, wow. And I don't ever condone killing, unless it's The Walking Dead and the kid is annoying, then kill them all. But in this movie, I was like, man. But it added so much to the emotion of the movie and to the horror. Like, it feels really real. Like, hey, because that's a fear that you have. Like, if something is gonna happen, and your kids have to be quiet and behave, and there's like, even when you're out in the world, like, you're relying on them not being a little more mature. I mean, that's terrifying to think of in and of itself. So I think that added to the fear for me for the movie.
Oh, it did. It's kind of like, have you ever seen Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so there's something that happens towards the end of the first season for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. And when this moment happens, you're like, now I don't know what the show's going to throw my way.
Yeah.
Because if this happened, what else could happen, you know? And that's kind of the same feeling I got with this. Well, if you can just kill a kid like in the first opener scene, what else can you show me? And yeah, it was pretty crazy. So I also want to ask you this, man. Like, they don't explain where the aliens came from, why they're here, anything like that. They don't give you any backstory. All you know is that they have supersonic sound. They can't see anything, and I just got to know, like, do you have a problem with the fact that they didn't explain any of that?
No, like the scene where it jumps ahead in like a year, and you see all like the newspaper clippings of like armored, supersonic hearing, be quiet, get underground, and stuff like that. That was enough for me to be like, okay, something has happened. We don't really know what happened. There's no real explanation for it, but they're trying to figure out the world, and it's almost like a glimpse into the world falling apart, because you're like, when did they do these stories? And then what happened between when they started doing these stories to where everybody is in hiding, because these things are so badass that we've got to really be careful, you know? It doesn't bother me at all. I didn't need that kind of backstory. Just their presence and what they're capable of was enough for me.
I completely agree, man. And I've heard so many complaints where people were like, "Oh, that movie was trash," and you're like, "Why?" And they're like, "Because they didn't explain anything. They didn't explain why or how." I'm like, "But if this was reality, would they?" You know what I'm saying? Like, who has enough time to catch one of these things and, you know, dissect it and rip it apart and see what it's capable of, and then report it to the media and then report it to the people? What if no one had time? What if these things just, you know, wherever they came from, just started killing, which it looked like from the trailer of the new one coming out. You get to see a little bit of how the world fell, and you get to see these things just kind of come out of nowhere and start tearing people apart. What if there was no time to find out? There was no backstory because they didn't know. All they know is these things are very sensitive to sound, and that's all they know.
Right. Armored, super deadly, super fast. Like, and they said, what, there's 3 confirmed in the area, and 3 of them completely shut down this huge area. Imagine if there's like 100, you know, and they show up in a big city. What are we going to do? We're all going to die. That's what's going to happen. Like,
oh, yeah. And I wonder, see, here's the only reason why I would want to know a backstory is because how many came down, where did they land, where are they right now? You know, how many are there? Are there only 3 in just this story, or are there only 3 that came down and they just happened to land right here? Or did, like you said, like, did 1,000 come down all around America, or what?
I think with a sequel, they maybe have an opportunity to tell that story. But I think with just this one and with the budget they had to keep the story tight. So, and I think that they did a good job. I think any more of that maybe would have taken away from the story that they did tell and affected the pacing and all that stuff, because it wasn't about what it's doing to the whole world. It's about this specific family. And I think that was a wise choice.
Oh, I love that choice, and I'm so glad that they kept it to the movie, dude. I gave this one a 10 out of 10. Like, I am not complaining by any means. I'm just trying to keep the conversation, devil's advocate, going, and I wanted to know if you had a problem with that, like, because I'm sure there's going to be some listeners that are listening to this that are like, well, I didn't like that there was an origin story to the aliens, and it's like, but sometimes that gives you an imagination, you know. Sometimes that makes you think, well, where did they come from? Where do you think they came from? And what do you think they're capable of? And where do you think they're going from here? And you got to see towards the end of the movie, the mom killed one of them. So what does that mean? There's only 2? Or did that gunfire bring on 40 more from surrounding areas? You know, how far out can they hear?
Right.
You know, there's all these questions, and I really hope they address it in A Quiet Place too. And they, you know, they give me something else. But if they don't, I don't really have a problem with that. I'm satisfied with the movie that they gave us. Pregnant wife. I was going to ask you what you thought about this, but you kind of told me, you're stupid, man. You're kind of stupid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, for so many reasons. Like, I get that you're married and you're bored. I get that. And then, you know, you're trying to keep life as normal as possible. And I'm pretty sure that if an apocalypse happened, my wife and I would still be doing that. But, like, come on. This is such a bad idea. Like, it's just, there's nothing smart about it. And I know that it's hard to prevent without, you know, contraceptives and things like that. I understand, but it's just like, it's nuts. It's nuts. But I mean, they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. Like if they're going to keep having sex, it's a high possibility they're going to get pregnant. I mean, it's just reality. Without the contraceptives, it's going to happen. So, but it seems like a bad decision.
So I know they don't give us this, so I'm just going to ask your audience opinion. Do you think it was an accident, or do you think they chose this?
I don't think they chose it. I don't think it's like a replacement for the son that they lost or anything like that. I think it was, and I don't know if accident is a word that I would use either. I think it was just hey, this is what happened. Like we're still having sex because we're married, and maybe we're trying to have a normal life, and pregnancy happens when you have sex. That's just how it works. So I don't know, but I didn't feel like it was one way or the other. What about you?
Well, as I'm asking you this question, I'm kind of thinking it for the first time myself, and I can say this. So I'll get a little personal real quick with you and everybody else. So I got off the phone with my doctor today for a vasectomy consultation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have 2 kids and I'm happy with my 2 kids, and I don't see any other way to have a third right now, like financially and everything and babysitter wise. So my wife and I came to the decision that like we're pretty much done with kids, and we have a boy and a girl. So, hit the nail on the head first time.
There you go.
So I can tell you that when it was just my firstborn, my son, we wanted a second kid, and we weren't trying to get pregnant, but we definitely weren't, protected. We were just like, whatever happens, happens, because we know we want a second kid, just whatever. But I can tell you that right now, my wife is off of birth control, and I am about a week away from wanting to get a vasectomy, right? And so we have this little time period right now, and I'm telling her like to stay away from me because like I can't, even though I want to, I can't risk us getting pregnant right now. And I don't even have aliens outside my door.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I kind of feel like if you're that desperate to make love to your wife, which I completely get, and I do understand, I'm just gonna get a little, TMI here, but there's other holes.
Yeah, there's other options. Yeah,
there's other places to do stuff like that don't involve you getting pregnant if you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like in dire situations like that, you would try new things.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, and I have 5 kids, so
Dang.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm jealous, dude. I do want a big family.
Yeah. Well, there's, you got a week.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I know for a fact that if my wife and I were still alive in an apocalyptic situation, that's not something that would stop. So I guess I need to get my vasectomy in case something like that happens, so that we're free to do whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, but ultimately, I would say that it was I don't know, dude. I really can't say that I feel like it was an accident with them, and not accident, but unplanned.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, dude. Like, losing your kid, like, I'm so fortunate that I have not experienced that, and for anyone who has, I'm so sorry, but I don't know what kind of feeling you would have afterwards, like, because I can tell you that we just got a new cat like within the last few weeks, and because we had to put our kitten down like a month ago, and that was just a 6-month-old baby kitten that had like a heart murmur, so we had to like put her down. Yeah, it was so sad.
Yeah.
And we had to grieve, but like one thing that made us feel a lot better was we got a new kitten, and it made our other cat happy. It's making my kids and us happy and stuff. And so I wonder, is there a small part of you that loses a child that feels like not at all that you are replacing your kid, but do you want to have another one? I mean, I guess in a way, yeah, to replace them, but you're not replacing them. You know what I'm saying? Like you're filling an empty void, I guess you can say, maybe. And so I don't know.
That's possible, but I feel like in this scenario, you wouldn't want to bring a kid into that if you had a choice.
No, not at all. And they had a choice. They didn't have to do it the way they did it, but they did. And that is probably the ultimate test when it comes to this life that they're living, is how do you stay quiet with a baby that you cannot convince to be quiet? It's just going to make noises. And to have
communicate.
Right. and to have the oxygen tank and the oxygen mask, and to have like an underground soundproof little bunker for the baby, that is just so genius. And I'm just hats off to the writers for coming up with that solution. It's so brilliant.
Yeah, and they didn't know if it would work. Like, the only way you're going to find out if this works is you got to try it out, you know? Like, we're going to have the baby, we're going to see it, put it in there, see what happens, you know?
Yeah, and I don't know what they're going to do when that kid is like 1,
Right.
6 months, 7 months, 1, because they don't just like shut up after the first week of life. Like, my kids still don't shut up, and they're 3 and 5. You know, and it's like, even if I were to tell them like, be quiet, otherwise we're gonna die, maybe my 5-year-old might get it, but my 3-year-old would be like, I want to play with toys.
Right. Don't tell me to be quiet. I'm going to talk.
Well, now I'm gonna be louder.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So another question I had is, why couldn't the daughter go downstairs? Because there's a moment where she's walking through the house, and brilliantly they have tiles or wooden pieces of the ground marked where you can step, where it's not going to creak. But I also kind of had a question there too. How did you find out if it was creaky or not? Did you just like barely apply pressure to find the creaky spots? Because if you found the creaky spots, the aliens would have got you, wouldn't they?
Right. I don't know. It's hard to know, like, how they built this infrastructure. Honestly, like, how did you make a path to go get the sand and bring it back? And like you said, with the steps. So I don't know why she can't go downstairs. I don't know that they ever made it clear. I don't know what he's doing down there. Is that where? Because it's kind of hard to tell the locales. Like, there's this big farm that they're on, and I think the house that she can't go downstairs is their old house, and like, because her brother's room is in there. So I don't know what's downstairs in that house that she can't go down and see.
Well, I have an answer to that.
Oh, good.
Because that, I had the same question for the longest time, because it is a little confusing, because there's all these different paths. They live on this big farmland, and so one is the barn, one is, you know, the water, one is the beach, one is the house. Where are they at different times? And it kind of seems like the daughter just took off and went somewhere like an unknown location, and it's this old creaky house. But one thing I noticed was that when she's looking down the stairwell, and you can see her straight on from, I guess technically the point of view would be from downstairs looking up, you can see behind her, on the wall behind her, and there was some peeling paint. And I really stuck my eyes out on that one to see if I could like recognize this for later, because later on, when they, all 3 of them plus the new baby, go downstairs towards the very end of the movie, that same wall with the peeled paint is behind that staircase. So that
so it's
is
like
the spot.
Dad's radio room.
Yeah, where he was working on everything. And it's not like John Krasinski's character was keeping a secret from his daughter that he was working on those ear things for her. Like, obviously he's tried and failed many times with this, and that's what kind of like confused me, where she goes to take a step and he's like, you can't go down there, you cannot go down there. And I'm like, why? That I think if I was going to knock this movie for anything, this would be the biggest thing, because that wasn't clear to me, and they never retouched on it. The only thing was, I can just assume that maybe he didn't want her to know how much time he was actually devoting to her, and maybe she might feel like he was spending too much time focusing on her when there's other people in the family. Maybe. I literally just came up with that because I have no clue.
Yeah, or maybe there's all that equipment down there that he didn't want her to mess with, or didn't want her to break, you know, because it's a radio, all his TVs and the cameras and the whole setup for the program. He's like, yo, you don't need to be down here because, this is adult room. Like, I don't know. But I, like, in my office, I don't let the kids in here. Like, I mean, they can come in here, but they don't come in here and play, because I got a lot of stuff in here that I don't want them messing with. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, I have I'm looking currently at about 15 Dragon Ball figures on top of my computer desk right now.
Nice.
And my daughter likes to, grab my Goku toys and Kamehameha and stuff. And it's cute, but don't touch my stuff. I love you, but those things are expensive.
Yeah.
Don't touch my stuff.
The colored buttons on my podcast thing, those are not for touching. They actually do something.
They look fun, but don't.
Yeah.
All right, and then I want to talk about the dad and the daughter disconnect, because there is the moment we've talked about where the dad and the son go to the waterfall, and this is honestly one of the only times that they can actually converse outwards without having to use sign language. And the son has this really emotional talk with the dad where he's saying, like, do you blame Reagan for the death of the son? And he goes, no, of course I don't. And he goes, well, she thinks that you do. And he's like, well, I don't. And he goes, do you love her? And he's like, of course I love her. Like, of course. And he's like, maybe you should tell her that sometime, because she probably feels like she's not loved by you, and you do blame her for the death of your kid. And I just kind of want to talk about that relationship. Like, what did you think about just, I guess, the whole thing when it came to that conversation, to the moment when the daughter and the son are on top of that like corn thing or whatever, I don't know what to call it, but like that corn thing, and the son is just like, let's wait for dad to come get us. And she goes, he's going to come for you. He's not going to come for me. He's going to come for you. And she just feels like the dad doesn't love her. Like, what do you think about that dynamic?
I mean, it's tough to watch. Like, I feel like John Krasinski's character blamed himself. The mom blamed herself. The daughter blamed herself. You know, like everybody kind of blamed themselves, and no one ever talked about it. Because why would you talk about that? Like, that's not like, hey, we're going to sit down and hash this out. Whose fault? Who's no one to blame? Like, because nobody would believe it. Like, if something like that happened to me and it was my fault, or I could put blame on myself, if someone tried to tell me that it wasn't, I wouldn't believe them. And like, it hasn't been enough time, and there hasn't been enough opportunity for anybody to really have any healing from that, because constant fear, constant work to try and have a life where you can even feel any sort of safety, you know, all these distractions would happen to prevent you from talking about it. So when things just kind of, you know, don't get talked about and just kind of fester, I could see how that would really strain every relationship. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to watch, but I mean, it makes sense. Like, I think everybody blamed themselves a little and blamed other people a little too, and they just didn't talk about it. But everybody was like, hey man, we're all at fault here. We all messed up and we should have done better. So maybe that's part of why the daughter's mad at the dad too. Like, hey, you should have done more to help him, and you didn't. And the dad's like, hey, you shouldn't have given him the toy because I told him not to have it, but you did. You know, like, there's blame to go around.
Dude, I really hope that, no, I guess I don't, but what I would really like to see is in the sequel, if they would show a moment with the dad and the daughter talking about the death of the son, you know, like a one-on-one at the waterfall or something, where well, I guess she can't talk, she's actually deaf, but well, maybe she can, I don't know, but actually talking about it, and, you know, having that moment where we get to actually see why she feels like he blames her, you know, because, like, I know that she probably just automatically thinks it because she is the one that gave him the toy, but I want to know, was there actually a conversation that happened where she feels even more to blame, or if it, like you said, was it never talked about? Like, have you ever seen the movie Hereditary?
No.
Okay, it's scary, and I know you're not a huge fan, so I can just tell you there's a major event that happens in the family involving a death of somebody. And there's a huge awkward dinner moment in that movie with the mom and then another one of the kids and then the dad, and they're talking about basically, like, there's attitude at the table, and one of them is just like, all right, mom, like, what do you got to say to me? And she's like, nothing. He's like, you blame me for this, you know, like, and they have this huge family blowout at the table about the death of a family member. And so I wonder, was anything said or done like that? Because the first time you see the kid die is, like you said, it's like 90 days or something like that. It's not even 100 full days. And then the next time you see them, it's like day 460 or something. So, you know, over a year has gone by.
Right.
And so I just wonder, like, in that year, did they have moments where they talked one-on-one about it? Did anybody ever talk about it? Like, I don't know, you know, and just, it's hard to say. And I kind of would like to see that, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's so much with this movie that they didn't say, which I don't have a problem with, but since they didn't say it, I kind of do want it, you know, especially now that you and I are talking about this, it's making me realize I kind of want more.
Yeah.
So speaking of the dad and the daughter disconnect, there's a lot of moments, like I said, where she gets mad at him or something and she kind of walks away because she's pissed off. I need to ask you, dude, as a dad, and if you can put yourself in their shoes, already losing a child based off this monster, would you ever let your kids walk off while they're angry by themselves, especially if they're deaf?
No, no. Like, I know you want to go blow off steam and be on your own and everything, but you're not leaving my sight. Like, you're not leaving. Like, we're going to have, like, when they're kids, they're like, hey, you can't ride your bike past this point. You can't go this far away from the house. You can't be out of my line of sight. If I don't see you, you're too far. And I feel like that would be even more so in this situation, because it's like, are you kidding me? If I can't see you, and especially with you not being able to hear, you may not know if you knock something over. You may not know if you make a noise because you can't hear. So you need someone there who can inform you, like, hey, quiet, you're being too loud. Like, seriously, like, they gave way too much leeway. And like, when the father and son go fishing and leave the daughter with the mom, and the daughter just bails on the mom, she just goes off on her own. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, no, that's not okay.
That's specifically the scene that I was talking about too, is she walks away. And the way that you said that, like, what if she can't hear that she knocked something over, is the same thing that I thought. And have you ever seen the show How I Met Your Mother?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember this scene, but there's one quick little funny scene with Ted Mosby, the character, where he's beatboxing in the bar, and he's like sounds super duper good, and everyone's like cheering for him and stuff because that's what he sounds like in his head, but
Right.
he's hammered. And so in reality, though, he's like "Puh, puh, 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 puh," and he just drops his mic.
Nice.
And it's so funny, but that kind of made me think about this movie, where what if she doesn't know outwardly that she's making all this noise? Because even when she's walking through that house and she's stepping on all the blue spots where, you know, it's not going to creak. Well, what if she's just a centimeter off and it does creak, but she thinks she's being all sly? Or what if she's just walking and she steps on a twig, or
Right.
say it's summertime and she's all those leaves from the beach and everything, they're all crunchy and dry.
Right.
What if she steps on one and she doesn't realize she crunched it? Then what does she do? Like, I feel like, I'm not trying to say like discriminate at all because she's deaf, but I would say you need to be more on top of her because she's deaf and she doesn't realize what she's doing. It's like putting a blind person in a glass antique shop without their stick and being like, don't run into anything. And it's like, well, I can't see.
Yeah.
So maybe you should have somebody with me guiding me through this glass antique shop if I'm blind.
Right. And even just the fact that she's young, like, you can't trust kids, even in this situation. Like, you have to be perfect all the time. If you make a mistake, your life is in danger. Like, seriously in danger. So, I mean, it's not that I think kids aren't capable. It's just, as a parent, I would want to be there to do something if something happened, to be there to make sure that they were protected and make sure that they were okay if a mistake happened, you know?
Yeah, and even after the whole birth scene happens and stuff, and that's when John Krasinski is down in the, you know, cutout basement soundproof spot with the baby and the mom. She wakes up and she sees him and she goes, where are they? And he's like, I'll find them. It's like, you don't know?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know where they are? Like, you know where your son is because you guided him to go do the firework thing, but your
Right.
daughter, because you guys let her just take off, now she could be out there dead, or she could be out there making noise, or, you know, you don't know what she's doing. And I kind of feel like, maybe, did you guys not learn your lesson from your
Right.
first kid, you know, that died? Like, how many do you have to lose to where you should be like, yo, you're going on a leash? Times are different, you know? This isn't just Disneyland, you know, holding your kid on one of those backpack leashes. This is, you make one loud noise and you are completely going to be murdered by these creatures. I'm sorry, but you have to be more on watch if you're going to be a good mom. And then if you're even going to throw in the lines like, what are we if we can't protect our kids? Well, where are your kids? It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are?
Yeah.
No, you don't. Jesus. All right. So the part where the dad and the son and all them are, it's just the dad in the beginning. He's sitting on top of that corn thing, and he's looking at pictures of his dead son and his little artifacts and stuff. And, you know, he's up there reminiscing and crying a little bit. And then he lights that fire. And then around the forest area, you can see other fires being lit by other people that are still survivors. I thought that was really awesome, and I loved that they had that sort of communication, even though I kind of want to know, well, how did you get in contact with each of them to know that, like, every night you're going to light a fire, you know?
Right.
and who are these people? And I hope we get to discover who they are in A Quiet Place too. But also, when the kids towards the end of the movie go on top of that same building or whatever, and they light the fire, you notice that other fires didn't light.
Right.
And I got to know, because I'm a little confused on that too. Was that just because no one lit the fire, or was that because all those people are now murdered or something? Like they're not alive anymore?
I mean, we know one of them is because we see that old couple, that got killed, and then the old dude screamed and he got killed. So I'm assuming they were someone that lit the fire. But the fire that the kids lit wasn't very big. It's like they just had one little lighter fluid bottle and they lit it, and it didn't get all that big. So
yeah, they even ran out.
Yeah. So maybe they just didn't do it big enough for the other people to see. But you would think that you would see the other people lighting their fires, unless John's character was the one that always started it. Who knows?
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's kind of in the center. But what are they going to do? Like, if John doesn't light his fire, are they going to come help? No. Like, what? I'm not going to come help. Like, honestly, I feel bad saying it, but I'm being real. Like, if I don't see that fire lit, I'm be like, okay, they're dead. I may go over there tomorrow to see what I can find, but I'm not going to run out of help. That's not happening.
Yeah, sound like you've seen a lot of Walking Dead.
Yeah. A little bit.
A little bit. So I want to ask you about the creature design itself. What did you think? Did you like it? Did it not a little bit kind of remind you of the Stranger Things Demogorgon thing or whatever?
It did, but I thought it was cool. Like, I like creatures that run on all fours because that's fast. I like the kind of humanoid, and then their heads with all the different folds and like the huge ears when they show that. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a cool monster. Like the last horror film I had seen before this, for Nthcast, Josh made me watch Tusk, which I hated, and I had no idea what it was when he made me watch it. But when they rolled that thing out, and it was like that monster, like a spoilers, the monster in that, I'm not going to say it, but the monster in Tusk, I was like, that's ridiculous. But this one I thought was cool.
Okay. Did you think the CGI looked good, or did you think it looked CGI-ish, or do you think it was like, no, that was really good?
I think some of the close-ups of the creature were good. For sure. I thought the worst CGI in the movie was the fireworks. I'm like, y'all can't afford to shoot real fireworks? Like, what the hell? Like, why did you CGI in fireworks? Like, could you not afford, $100, like, whatever? Like, what the hell? But I thought the creatures looked good, honestly. Like, and the way they moved was creepy. And, like, specifically, when that one dove into the water and, like, started swimming, I was like, that is terrifying. That is terrifying.
That completely freaked me out too. Totally, when he like, because he doesn't like just jump into the water and splash around. He like slowly just dips into the water, and you're Emily Blunt and you're trying to get to your newborn baby that's floating near you.
Yeah.
And you have no idea where this thing is, what they can hear underwater or anything. And then she ends up getting the baby. And then, like, right as she picks up the baby, the monster comes from under the water and it's right in front of her. Like, thank God that thing couldn't see. It can only hear.
Right.
Because that thing was face to face with her. And, like, oh my God, dude. Like, that's another reason why I praise this movie so much, is just the suspense, dude. Like, when somebody says that this movie puts them on the edge of their seat, literally puts me on the edge of my seat, dude. Like, there's moments where you're just, like, sitting straight up and you're just like, Jesus, what is going to happen? How are you going to get out of this one? And, even specifically the moment when she steps on that nail. I think we got to step on that nail talk, man.
Dude, no way. Because they're always barefoot because shoes would make noise. Makes sense. But, she's in labor, walking downstairs to get ready to give birth, and then steps on that nail, and you're just like, what? No, I would scream. And she, like, drops something glass, right? And that's what attracts the creatures?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks, dude. Like, I couldn't even imagine. So your foot hurts, and there's people coming. You're in labor, and you can't scream. I'm like, nah, not for me.
And if anybody's ever seen Home Alone, then you have a complete idea of how much it must hurt to step on a nail with no feet on. I mean, no shoes on. JD, have you ever stepped on a nail ever?
Yeah, I have. But it went through a shoe, so it just felt like a little prick and stuff like that through the shoe sole, but I couldn't imagine doing it barefoot. No way.
I've never done it barefoot. but I did it with just a regular sneaker on one time when
Yeah.
I was like, I think I was like 16 or something,
Yeah.
and I was helping one of my dad's friends like landscape something, and so I was pulling down her fence, and my dad was like, watch out, you know, you don't want to step on a nail, you got to watch out where you're walking. And I was like, okay. And literally it was the whole time I never stepped on anything, and it was like the last hour of like the last day that we were going to be there, and I was just standing there, and I took one step back, and I felt this like cold shiver go up my leg and like in my brain, and I was just like, oh, like I knew what I did, and I looked down, and like I had this 2x4 attached to my foot because it like literally went into my heel, and then I pulled it off like really quick because it was like a kind of a reaction, like you step on it and you're like, you know, and you like pull it off really quick. And I noticed that in this movie she steps on it and then she leaves her foot on it for like a good 15-20 seconds before she even pulls it off, and I was just like, oh, like, can you imagine, dude? You're already in like the most traumatic pain ever in labor, and then you step on that nail, and oh Jesus, and you know that like you made this huge noise, and an alien is coming to kill you.
Yeah, no, that's awful. Yeah, oh God, I don't know. It's probably not as bad as childbirth, but still painful.
Yeah, and then, dude, John Krasinski's acting when he finally makes it back into the house, and he goes into the bathroom and he sees just all the blood in the tub, and he's convinced that his wife has just gotten mutilated by this alien, and he's sitting there and he's crying, and oh man, I've always been a fan of him. He's Jim to me, you know, and I love that character, but I did not know he could act that good, and then seeing this movie like changed my mind completely.
Yeah, he's excellent. And that new show he does, the Jack Ryan show, he's very good in that too.
Oh, is he? I've actually never seen it.
It's good on Amazon. It's worth watching.
Yeah, I have it. I have Amazon. I've just never seen it for some reason. I don't know why. I really liked the whole elaborate setup that they had with the lights, where it's like regular colors, and then if something's going down, they flip it to red.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because you can't communicate, you know, via phone or whatever. Like, hey, be careful coming home. There's a monster here. You're like, hey, red. And red is the perfect color.
Oh, because red's scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, it was so brilliant to do that. And I love it because the dad and the son are still coming back from their, you know, fishing trip or whatever. And they're like walking back up. And right when they get over the hill, they see the red lights, and just, dude, all silence is thrown out the window. They just sprint towards that house. And dude, I love it because there's so many things happening all at once. The mom is inside, hiding from a monster, going through labor, trying to breathe. And then you have the dad and the son is like, I'm terrified. I'm scared right now. And the dad is telling him, like, you need to be a man right now. Like, you need to like do, you know what to do. You need to do it. Mom is counting on you. You have to help her. And then, oh my God, bro, like the music, the score, everything, when it's just the score is rising and it's getting just more swelled up, and the son is running, sprinting at full speed to go down to the firework. And then John Krasinski is like, he's sitting there and he's waiting for the moment, and just all of it
With the gun. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, all of it just put together at once with the fireworks going off, basically synchronized with the screaming of the mom as she can't hold it anymore, the dad running across the field with a shotgun, like everything at once, dude, the fireworks behind him, lighting up the scene. Dude, I'm getting like, honestly, goosebumps right now, like thinking about that scene. It was just so well directed and so well put together. Like, God, man, this is definitely like one of my favorite movies out there, dude. Like, it's so goddamn, I'm so thankful you picked this one.
Oh, good. Yeah, and the daughter, like, she's just laying by her brother's like cross that they marked on because there wasn't a body, and she sees the fireworks, so she runs back, and then the kind of the chaos that goes from there, like mom and dad kind of have their stuff together, and he picks up Emily, but the baby starts crying. So when they're getting close, and so he's like, I'm going slow, but not no more. So he starts running to their room, and then like the other son leaving where he was when they're like, hey, you're supposed to stay there, to stay there, but he leaves because kids are dumb. And then the daughter running and like seeing where her brother had like ran off the side and ran to the tractor, and his flashlight was just chilling there. I'm like, oh man, this is really building. What's going to happen next? Like they got through this one tough part, but now there's like a rescue mission again. It was crazy.
Yeah, and then from there, that's when they go to that corn thing. I got to figure out what that thing is
called. I think
called.
It's called a silo or something like that, right? Isn't it just a silo?
Well, it is for this episode, at least.
There we go.
Man, if we're wrong, it's going to be funny, but whatever.
Yeah.
So they get to the silo, and they're on top of it, and I forgot what happens. I think the son just like falls into it. I think he just trips or something.
Yeah, there's a door on the top. I'm assuming that's how they put it in with those grain elevators and stuff like that. You fill it in from the top and then you take it out from the bottom, like in like a wheelbarrow or whatever.
Yeah.
And he steps on the door and falls through because you're supposed to stay on the outside of it, like on the path. And he trying to walk over to his sister to get her to stop and just falls through.
Yeah, he falls through, and then he starts getting like sucked into the corn like it's quicksand or something. And even the daughter is just kind of like she jumps down to try and save the son, which thankfully one of the doors falls off the hinges and it lands right next to him, which was awesome too. But like he was able to grab on, and it kind of reminded me of Titanic, where it's like, they both could have fit on the door.
They definitely could have. But
and then you think like they're safe and everything's all good, and then all of a sudden one of the aliens just like falls into it.
Dude, that was terrifying. When that thing just falls into the grain next to them, you're like, what? They're done.
Yeah, and luckily they survive, and it was so terrifying, and the suspense was built so well, and you can see that these aliens are just shredding through this really hardcore steel door, like it's butter.
Right through it. The claw just went right through it like it was nothing. I was like, oh no, this is bad.
Oh yeah, you're in for a real horrible treat right here. And eventually, the only reason I think that they lived was because of the daughter's earpiece that she's wearing. The high frequency starts going off, and I think this was the first time I realized like it started only going off when the alien was near her. Like the alien was the one who triggered it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like an echolocation thing or what, but it felt like when it opened its ear hole real big, some sort of frequency was coming out of the monster, and it set off her hearing aid. Or whatever, and that noise that it set off with the hearing aid is what affected its hearing. I'm like, that's not the noise that I'm expecting to come back and return.
Yeah, it's like the frequencies were really high or something, and it just like messed with the alien because their hearing is so good. It was like way too loud, and they were like, I can't take it, and it runs away. And I even noticed that when the alien is nearby in the basement, when it's pretty much like right up against the family and the baby, like towards the very end of the movie, when it's in the basement, it's standing next to the computer monitors, and the computer monitors are all staticky.
Yeah.
And I feel the alien was pushing some sort of frequency thing off of itself into something else. But
definitely,
that's the only reason why they survived from that silo. And the alien runs out the side of it. Dad finds the kids, and that was just such an amazing moment when he finds the kids, and he's like, we got to get back to mom, and we got to get back. And they realize pretty much their creatures are around him. And I don't know about you, man, but this was pretty much the first time I saw it. This is where the tears started flowing. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like the mom sees the dad find the kids, and like this look of relief and joy, and like, this is a beautiful moment. And then immediately I'm like, no, this is not going to work out the way you think it's going to work out. And then, dad sends the kids to the truck, and he reaches to get an axe. Like, what is he going to do with an axe, honestly? But he's trying to find some sort of protection. And then that thing being on top of the building that he's under, you're like, that's the end.
Well, and it pretty much was, unfortunately, because it jumps towards John Krasinski, and he even takes a swing with his axe, but it's rendered useless pretty much. Yeah. And John gets swiped by that alien, and it flies 15 feet away and lands. And the daughter is underneath the truck. The son is in the truck, and they're seeing their dad. And that's when the son screams for the dad, which pretty much gets the alien's attention. And the alien just starts viciously, rapidly, like attacking the truck, trying to get to the kids. And the moment that really stuck out to me this time watching it was when John Krasinski and his wife were having the conversation about the whole protecting your children thing. And she goes, it's up to you to protect them. Like, you need to protect them, and whatever it takes to protect them. And knowing how this movie ends, hearing that dialogue, it totally makes sense why he self-sacrificed for those kids, and he did whatever it took for them. And he's basically there, and in order to get the attention of the alien, he drops his axe, and the alien like looks at him, and you're like, wait a minute, like, they're not going to kill the dad, right? And dude, it's wrapped up like a beautiful present with a nice bow on top of that package. The dialogue from the earlier scene where the son tells him, you should tell her that you love her.
Yeah.
He's standing there in his last final moment as the daughter is watching him in sign language. He says, I love you. I have always loved you.
Yeah.
Like, and the way that he says always with his facial, structure, how he acts it, he just has this look like, not I've always loved you. It's you should never have a doubt in your mind that I have always loved you to the full capacity of my love. You know what I mean? And I feel like she finally gets to hear her dad say that, like, even though it's through sign. But she does that, and then he just yells out this painful scream, and the alien just jumps, lunges, takes him out. Fortunately, you don't see him get killed, which I'm glad, because I didn't want to see him get like chopped up. But you know that he died, and then the son immediately puts the handbrake down. The truck coasts down to the house, and dude, so I was already crying the first time I saw this, like, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It got me, dude. And then immediately after that, the mom comes out of the house with the shotgun, and the kids run out of the truck, and they meet, and they just like collapse into the mom. Dude, that scene got me choked up, man. Like when they're hugging their mom.
Yeah, this whole sequence, like the scream that John Krasinski does is, I mean, there's so much in it. Like, it's like pain, there's fear. I mean, you can hear the fear and almost the acceptance of what he knows is about to happen. But I mean, he's so terrified. Like, I'm about to die, but I've got to do this for my kids and for my wife. But that doesn't mean I'm really looking forward to it. So, I mean, that scream, like, it's not like like you would normally yell, like, ah. It's like it's from like a really deep place within. And then, like you said, when they get to the mom, they can't talk about anything. They can't be like, what happened to dad? Can you believe that? They're like, there's still people around. There's still these creatures here, and we are in trouble. We got to deal with this. But I'm hurting more than I've ever hurt in my life, because husband, father, gone. The one who's been taking care of us this whole time is gone. So what do we do, honestly?
And that's what we're going to find out in part 2 is what they're going to do. Because right now, like, that basically the dad's gone, 2 kids, mom, and literally a newborn baby. And then from there, the kids and the mom, they go back into the basement, and they're looking at the security cameras, and you just see the son holding the baby. Mm-hmm. The daughter finally goes down and sees the stuff that the dad's been working on. And that was, dude, honestly, I remember specifically being in the theater. I cried when John Krasinski got killed. I cried when they got to the mom, and I thought I couldn't cry anymore after that. And then she sees, and she picks up like all the handful of the ear things that he's been working on for her, and she just starts crying because she realizes how much he really does love her and everything. And that part got me crying. And then the mom comes, and the daughter shows the mom, everything that he's been working on, and she was just like, yeah, like, he loves you. And then she starts crying because she realizes that he's gone. And then I started crying again, dude, and I was just like, oh my god, man, like, it got me, dude. Like, I really got it, and I'm so happy that I cried, because that shows me that this movie knew what it was doing. It pulled it off effectively, and I love when I can see a movie and like feel something and get so involved in this fake media, and still I'm completely sucked in, and I love that aspect of it. Did you cry at all? Don't lie.
Oh yeah, I'm a very tender-hearted person, like more so than most people. Yeah, I cried when the little kid died at the beginning. I mean, that's awful, because I mean, I have 5 kids, like I said, so, and I have a little boy, and like that's just, yeah, I cried a lot. Yeah, and that's one thing I like about this movie. Like, you're so attached to this family and this family unit that you only see it for like a brief moment of time, but to see the love and the affection and the care that they have for each other, it's a beautiful thing, and it really helps you identify with them and really care about them in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, not for one moment did I at all feel any type of like acting when it came to the family and their God, what is the word? Their not a connection, but their
chemistry.
Thank you. Exactly, their chemistry. And when the mom earlier is teaching the son how to do math, I didn't feel like that was an acted scene. I felt like that is how a mom speaks to her child about, teaching. When I teach my kids stuff, I talk to them the same way. And the way that the mom and the daughter talk and the husband and the wife. Like, hey, dude, I really, before we get to the very end of this movie, I want to talk about that scene earlier on. And it's when John Krasinski is working on the ear thing for his daughter, and then the wife comes up from behind him and she kind of like gives him a hug or whatever, and he gets up and they both look at each other and they both have welded eyes, and you can tell that this family is just hurting. And like, dude, I can't even imagine what it must be like to be in some sort of alien invasion type of post-apocalyptic life, dude. Like, we're living with this coronavirus right now, and I'm not as stressed now as like I was a month and a half ago, you know. And but I can tell you though, there was a moment where it was like getting to me, and I'm an essential worker, and so I've been working this entire time and being exposed to everything. So I've been like pure anxiety when it comes to this, and that is just a virus that we're just waiting for it to like kind of cool down and maybe get antibiotics for it or something.
Yeah, we would love a vaccine. Whoever's working on that.
Yeah,
we got your back. Whatever you need, let us know.
Yeah, if I can help, you know, let me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any education with that, but I mean, if you need like a blood sample, something, just call me.
Yeah, dude.
I get what you mean. Like, and then they had a little escape when they were listening to the music together, but it showed their connection as husband and wife, not only in the movie but in the real life. Like, so much was communicated non-verbally there, and like you could see, you could see the connection, you could see the pain, like you said, and just the fear. And the stress, like, it's nonstop. Your stress is apparent anyway with kids, but I can't imagine how heightened it would be. And like, luckily they had each other, but I mean, they don't anymore, but they did have each other, and that's how they got whatever 470 days through all this.
Yeah, and you know, we both have wives and everything, and I really like, I liked what you said earlier, where you said, I'm a dad and I can actually relate to John Krasinski's character, you know, which if you're watching any movie where like the protagonist is a teenage high school girl, you know, edge of 17, like I can't relate to a 17-year-old girl from high school, but in this one I totally could put myself in those shoes. And to see him dancing with his wife and so tenderly, and they're sharing an earbud, you know, from their iPod and stuff, and they're listening to that song. And I love just the transition from when she pulls the earbud out of her ear, you can kind of hear the song that she's playing, and then she puts it into his ear and the volume like heightens to regular movie volume again, and you just see them dancing, and they're you know that if you were to walk downstairs and see them dancing, they'd be dancing to nothing as far as you can see, but to them it's like they were involved in their own world. And like, it just really touched me, dude, because like I love my wife, and if we were in this, dude, like that'd be one of the only things that could get me through it, was like counting on my wife's love. And you can really tell that they have that love, which is also awesome because they're actually married in real life.
Right.
So that's pretty cool too. But I guess to get to towards the very end of the movie, the son is downstairs holding the newborn baby. He's across the room, and then the daughter and the mom are on the other side of the room, and an alien creature comes down the stairs, and it's basically is right there, and the mom is holding a shotgun to its face, like, but they don't know how to kill it or whatever. And then all of a sudden the daughter's ear thing starts going off again, high frequency, and it starts like tripping the alien out. And then finally the daughter realizes, wait a minute, this is what's affecting and hurting the alien. And so what she does is she takes it off, she puts it up to like this speakerphone thing that the dad has, and she turns the frequency up a little bit, and then it like freaks out the alien, and the alien just like starts going like, Rah! And it like falls down, and then eventually it gets back up, and then the frequency like weakens it again, and then the mom blasts it with a shotgun, and it, you know, it tweaks out a little bit and stuff, but eventually it starts leaking the fluids or the blood or whatever, and it dies. And then you look into the security camera and you see that two of the other aliens are sprinting straight towards them. And I don't know about you, JD, but I can tell you that this was one of the biggest like standing ovation applauds to an ending that I felt in a handful of movies, and in just a handful of movies. And this one was so good because the mom and the daughter look at each other and they're like, oh my God, we like figured it out, you know? And she takes that headset and she hooks it up and she turns up the max frequency and volume all the way, skyrockets it. And then she's like, let's bring it on. And then the mom, dude, how you wrap up the movie, the mom, clink, clack, black movie, credits roll. directed by John Krasinski. Oh my God, bro. Like that look on her face, the mom's face, where she's just like, let's do it. You know, and the daughter and her are ready to go. Oh my God, dude. What did you think of that ending?
Dude, it's awesome. Like, it's not a happy ending. I mean, it is a happy ending, but it's not a happy ending because of all the tragedy that's happened before. But seeing that, hey, we've done it. We know the weakness, and we've gotten through the armor of these monsters, these aliens, whatever they are, and now we know what to do. And then the resolve on their face, because like the daughter, like you said, when she turned that thing up and looked at mom and was like, oh yeah, we got this now, let's go. I was like, yes, let's go. And I kind of wanted to see him kill the other two, but I don't need to, because I'm assuming that they won. Because if that other thing was incapacitated, those other two will come down there, same thing will happen, dead.
Dude, and then just the clink clack ending
Yeah,
was so beautiful, dude. And like that's exactly how I wanted it to end. And then when it did end that way, when I was in the theaters, I was just like, oh, bravo, this is perfect.
definitely. Yeah, it was a solid ending. Like, okay, I mean, it was a ride. I mean, it really was. Like, there was ups, there's downs, there's big ups, really low downs, and then it kind of ends on like a super high note. Like, okay, this is awesome. Like, for real.
Yeah, for real. And it was such an overall fantastic movie. And like I said, dude, I'm so thankful you chose this one, because when you were like, yeah, Quiet Place, I was like, yeah, that's a good one. Like, let's do that one. And then honestly, I wasn't even going to watch it because I just know it really well. But rewatching it again today, I'm so thankful that I did, because there was actually a lot that I forgot about it. One scene specifically that I completely forgot about was when the mom was in the room of the child that passed away. And she's just like sitting there in the seat looking around, and just her acting, her crying and the tears. And oh my God, dude, that's just one heartbreak I don't know if you could ever get over. And the way she was acting was just tremendously good. And I forgot about that scene until today.
Yeah, no, I remembered there was a lot that I've forgotten. I remember the creatures and like the main plots and the main recurrences, but yeah, the details and the fact that they did the details so well really I think make this movie take it to another level.
Take that to the next level. I totally get that, Pineapple Express. But yeah, dude, so I think it's gonna wrap this one up, dude. Like, I'm really thankful that you came on this episode with me, JD. I appreciate you, man. Like I said, I've been a long time fan of you and your buddies and stuff that you like to podcast with. And you know, I hope we can do this again sometime. Obviously,
Absolutely.
Quiet Place 2. Already got you in the books for that one, but maybe sooner than September we could have you on again.
Sure, I got time.
Yeah,
Happy
seems like
to be
everybody
there.
has time right now.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah, I mean, I'm working from home, but I do have a lot of free time. So yeah, we can make it happen for sure.
Yeah, dude. I'm sure we'll talk more about it and stuff. But yeah. So again, where can we find the stuff that you work on?
Sure. So my Twitter, I'm at RealJDLee. Just like it sounds, Real JD Lee. And then my big podcast is Dragon Ballers, at Dragon_Baller_Z is our Twitter, but you can find it on any podcatcher, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. We're on all those. And then the network that we do is called recap.fm. Just go to the website. We've got all our podcasts, current and old, on there. A bunch of shows, anime, horror. There's a horror show on there. A bunch of different current television series. That's what we podcast on. So check those out. We would love to have you. And if you like this, you would probably like those podcasts. So.
Oh, no. If you like this, you would love those podcasts, because you guys are way funnier than you and me were. Like, plus you guys talk about a lot more lighthearted stuff than we just did. You know, talk about baby death and, you know, man murder and aliens.
Right. I mean, there's a niche for everything, right? It's all necessary.
Oh yeah, and you did Mandalorian, right?
We did Mandalorian and The Witcher, and we're gonna start doing Clone Wars here in a minute. So
wow, I actually need to watch that. So if you do that, I'll be on board with listening to that.
there you go.
Yeah. All right. So that's gonna wrap this one up. Thanks everybody for chilling with us and hanging out. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Goodbye now.